Hello, Recon87 and welcome back to Combat Mission Battle for Normandy. And today we're going to be diving into a standalone scenario, one that is fan-made, freely available. I'll put the link down below. And it's the 130th Panzer Regiment Advances, or 130th Panzer Regiment Auf Dem Vormarsch to give it its proper title. And this one comes recommended to me by a commentator on the channel, Mark Jolton, so I know exactly where the blame's going to go if this all goes Pete Tom. Right, without further ado, let's have a look at the premise of the scenario. It's July 1944, and since the initial landings, the Allies have made steady progress and are now threatening Saint-Lô. In response, the Panzer Division, who have taken over this section of the line, have initiated a counter-attack with the objective of destroying the Allied bridgehead over the River Vière. The attack began at 1 o'clock this morning and is now 5 hours old, the Germans making use of the hours of darkness to avoid the Allied air superiority. We're going to be looking after the 902 Panzer Grenadier Regiment and the 130th Panzer Regiment, and we're attacking along the axis of Pont Herbert to Saint-Fromont. In this specific mission, we're looking to secure the crossing of a tributary of the River Vière and secure the road towards Cavigny. The tributary is crossable in 3 locations. We have a deep ford on our left flank, which is crossable only by infantry. We have the main road bridge in the centre, and we have a shallow ford on our right flank, which is navigable by vehicles. Our main objective is to secure the crossing across the river, clear out any Allied resistance on the north bank. The secondary objectives involve securing the road to Cavigny and dealing with any further Allied resistance in the highlighted areas. Our forces are divided into 3 sections, with each section tasked in securing one of the 3 river crossings. There is no freedom of deployment in this scenario, so if I want to redistribute my forces in any manner, it could take significant time and effort of on-map movement. The bulk of each force comprises of a Panzer Grenadier company, with each company comprising of 3 platoons and each platoon comprising of 3 squads and 2 anti-tank teams. Squad makeup fairly standard. We have the MP-44 officer and an MG-42 machine gun. The rest of the Pixel Troop predominantly have Kar 98s, or there's a few other weapons thrown in. We have a couple of scoped Kar 98s, there's a few of these Scheissbrecher rifle grenade launchers. We also see the occasional G43 semi-automatic rifle, as well as a very occasional MP-44. In addition, each of these infantry companies is supported by a few scout teams. It's interesting to note that within the German platoon, we only have the 3 MG42s, 1 embedded per squad. And we have no separate heavy machine gun teams supporting either the platoon or on a company basis. And if you compare this to an American equivalent of this time period, well, they would actually have 4 BARs embedded in their 3 squads, which is maybe only a slight extra, but they would also have 2 30 cal machine guns supporting the kind of company as a whole. In addition, obviously all the American Pixel Troopers have the M1 Garand semi-automatic rifle, which has a much higher rate of fire than our bolt-action Kar 98s. So actually on an individual platoon or company basis, I'm feeling that we're going to be up against it in volume of lead. Now, it's not a like for like, obviously I'd probably rather have an MG42 than a BAR, but it also means that our machine gun Pixel Trooping are much more valuable than an American equivalent because they have more of them to lose. In addition to the infantry, the rightmost and the centre sections are supported by elements of the 130th Panzer Regiment, and we have 4 Panzer IVs essentially split 2 tanks to each section. The leftmost section, that's facing the deep ford, which is not navigable by vehicles, is supported by a number of half-tracks. We have these 2 3-inch mortar half-tracks. We have one with a 75mm kind of howitzer, and finally we've got a couple of heavy machine gun sections in a 4th half-track. Finally, each of the 3 sections is supported by a recon vehicle. The leftmost and the centre is supported by the 234 armoured car, which has got a 20mm autocannon as well as an MG42 in the turret. And the right section is supported by the 250 half-track here, which is similarly armed with a 20mm autocannon and an MG42 in the turret. Finally, we also have some off-map artillery support. We have a battery of 81mm mortars as well as 105mm howitzers. The briefing said nothing about reinforcements, so I'm assuming I'm not getting any. In terms of opposition on the map, we've been told this sector is defended by the 119th Infantry Regiment of the 30th Infantry Division, and that these guys are freshly arrived in Normandy. So it means they're going to be full strength, but perhaps fairly green, or at the very most trained. They're not going to be veteran. In terms of on-map units we're expecting to see, well, large numbers of American infantry, supported by 30 cal machine guns, 3-inch mortars, probably a number of static AT guns. Don't know if they're going to be 57 or 75, we'll have to wait to see what we find. I also suspect they're going to have some kind of armoured support, although no idea what shape that's going to take, but something I'm just going to watching out for. In terms of terrain, obviously it's dominated by the river tributary here and the 3 crossings, but actually if you look at the kind of terrain on either side, you find there's not much in the way of good cover. So we have these low hedges which run along both sides of a river, and they'll offer reasonable concealment to infantry, but they're not going to offer much cover once you've been detected. And then behind it we actually have quite big wide open fields, and then obviously there's an element of woods, and then back towards the main road. However, it's not quite that straightforward, because when you get down into the kind of nuts and bolts, you find that there's a few gentle undulations which actually do end up being kind of blocking sightline. If you come all the way down to the river, you can see the land, it kind of rises up before it gets into the forest. So you could actually park infantry down here, relatively protected from any allied forces behind. Similarly, as we head towards the road, we do start getting some of this larger bocage, which does give, a reasonable bit of cover as well. And so that's probably going to dominate it, and expecting that allied to have positions along this road, which gives them a good kind of field of fire out into these fields to try and support or enfilade our forces as they're pushing up north of the river, assuming we get that far. So where does that leave us in overall strategy? Well, as previously mentioned, we've got the forces essentially split into 3 sections opposite each of the crossings, and have no freedom of movement and deployment, so I'm kind of stuck with that initial plan of sending one section up to each crossing to secure it and kind of attacking on a wide front, which is not tend how I approach. I'm more of a kind of concentrate forces and hit a single point, but we may have to make do with it. Now we do have 2.5 hours on the clock, which is quite a long time, so I'm happy to spend a reasonable bit of time early on scouting out and seeing if we can identify the American positions immediately across the river. I think the plan would be kind of twofold. On this right hand side, where it's very open behind the river, there is the wood, which obviously could hide some allied elements. I would look to kind of cross the river. Let's zoom over. Overcome, identify any defenders, overcome resistance, send a small section of infantry across to clear out, and then just hold in that kind of defilade position which we looked at earlier, so they're not drawing fire from any allied defences further back, but they are securing the required area. I'd probably then to take the bulk of those forces and move them to help support the middle section. On the left hand side, which I think is actually going to be kind of a key linchpin to perhaps not only securing some of the river crossings, but also if we do want to push up this road, I want to get across here a reasonable amount of force. So as we're relatively well defended from large sections of the map, we can offer some enfilading fire down along the riverside, and more importantly, when it comes to kind of pushing on these road sections, we can actually secure the base of the road here, which gives us a field of fire all the way along it, and then negates this as a defensive position for allies to hold, and then we can kind of flank up here. That's quite a way down the line, and we'll have to see how we get across the river crossings. Of course, we can't get any vehicles across here, so it's going to have to be initially get it and hold it with infantry, and then probably try and push our vehicles across the bridge. Now, I had to think about artillery elements, because ordinarily I would like to plan out some artillery before we get things kicked off. And without knowing exactly where they are, a couple of kind of thoughts sprung to mind. First, by either using some of the mortars to potentially thin out any troops hiding in these woods, or they'll maybe choose these howitzers again to hit these wooded ones. So I'm worried there may be probably some scouting elements, but also maybe some guns hidden in here, which, and although we may not damage them, we can kind of inflict damage upon the troops as well as muck up lines of sight and generally give them a bit of a bad day. Otherwise they could hide there fairly impervious until they get a good spot on one of our vehicles. However, I've ended up moving away from that, and partly because we have so much time on the map, even with a 15-minute call-in time, we have the luxury of moving up, identifying positions, calling in, and essentially waiting and letting my artillery go and then pushing on. So I'm not going to call any pre-planned artillery. I think we're going to have time enough to use it. The other thing to be aware of, I said 2.5 hours on my clock. That's quite a long mission. So I'm going to try and make a bit more healthy use of editing to try and get that into a reasonable number of episodes. So the initial plan, push up the scouts, identify positions, lock in some artillery, and then we'll try and secure a bridgehead with our combined armed forces. As ever, these things will have to be adapted as and when we meet contact with the enemy and when we can identify their defensive plan and their hard points. But yeah, by and large, foothold in stitches 2 and 3, sniffing holding in stitch 1 to secure the road, and then we'll push up kind of along the centre road line with our vehicles and from a left-hand flank with infantry, while holding a minimal force here to clear up other two patches. Simple, eh? Alright, well, let's see how we get on. So I'll kick things off. I'll do some initial scouting when I've got a reasonable view of the American positions, or I'm about to start dropping artillery. We'll bring it back and have a look at seeing where we are. Okay, so we are 9 minutes into the scenario and we're starting to get a little bit of a picture of the American defences. I've made a bit of an advancement. I'd like to have been a bit more uniform in my approach, but I've just ended up coming into contact a lot sooner on this right hand flank than I've really caught up everywhere else. I have taken a handful of casualties, so 3 brave pixel troopmen have died in my scouting teams, and sod's law, of course, 2 of them were MG42 gunners, so I've lost 1 out of this scout team here. I've lost the MG42 gunner out of this scout team far on the right, and then I've lost the assistant out of the squad team here. The Americans have started to reveal themselves, so we've seen, quite surprising actually, just guys essentially in behind these little hedges. Honestly, we've started to shoot back. I'll suppress one of them. As to be expected, you know, BER, he's got a scoped Garand. Yeah, fairly standard American infantry, a bazooka there. And we've seen similar on this right hand side as well. We've seen a couple of them pop their heads up. We've also seen the occasional foxholes. There's one over here, helping give a little bit of defense, and this one all the way over the other side here. But we're just about to take the time to actually try and crack these a little bit. So, how are we going about that? Well, I pushed in a couple of half tracks down on this far left hand side, which is a bit of heavy infantry, but there we go. So I'm going to get one of the heavy machine guns set up on this flank to just kind of enfilade this position. I do have to watch out for the infantry here, so I might see if I can get the other heavy machine gun section purely to focus on this. But I do also have the 75mm gun down here, so he could potentially take on these guys as well, although I'd rather turn him against the Americans in the hedge. Also starting to kind of call in support from up on the hill where we can bring it to bear. A couple of them have positive IDs, and he'll just do an area fire, which will always help. And finally, I'm calling in the on-map mortars, using this guy just to help soften these up. So I'm pretty confident we can overcome this first line relatively easily. On the right hand side, it's a bit of a tougher beast because we don't have as many angles for kind of heavy support. I have got the half track brought up along this road, and he's going to use his autocannon to chase off some Americans we know are hiding behind the bush. Otherwise, I'm just going to start to bring forward my infantry to try and build up a bit of firepower. But I mean, essentially we're getting to a slugging match, and I can probably expect casualties, so it's not ideal. But the real issue that stopped me bringing in any heavier support on the right flank or even through the centre is that I have not spotted a single AT gun anywhere yet, and I'm reluctant to just start rolling my vehicles around in the open because I know they're there somewhere. Don't know what lines they have, so I'm being very cautious with my armoured assets. I don't have that many of them, and be quite a pain to lose it early on. We also have this half contact, which has never materialized on the edge of the bridge here, which is apparently claiming to be a supply truck. Oh, and I've just noticed actually they've barbed wired this off. I wonder if that's going to be abandoned, if they're going to have blocked off the road. I don't know if I can get past that then. We may find that that becomes the only suitable vehicle crossing. Alright, we've got some guys heading this way to find out soon. So yeah, I think what we'll do is I might put in a wee cut just while we get these machines. In fact, no, we're about to pop for. Let's go for a live minute. And we'll see how it fares. See if we can get a machine gun set up. See if we can get some guys spawning in. We will get supporting fire out from here, hopefully. There we go. And ideally, I just want to keep these guys suppressed, give my machine gun team time to set up. You know, I'm not going to be inflicting that much casualties at this range. Just gonna keep them honest. Taking a casualty over here. Find a bit of land to double click on, move the camera over. That's relatively surprising that we've taken casualties so far back in the tree line. I'm surprised they've been spotted. Right there. And they were on a hunt order, so hopefully they just get their heads down and maybe even fire back. Autocannon doing its work. Ish. Again, if we can keep them suppressed as we try and break out here and build up enough firepower to overwhelm the defenders. I'm slightly reluctant of the guys poking their heads out here because they're going to be visible to a whole line. Like so. The officer's gone down there. Okay. Let's get you guys just to halt where you are. I'm just going to bring you forward slightly. Let's see if they can't assist with your targeting a little bit. And I'm going to set up some area commands for these guys because they have lost track where these Americans are. We'll go with that group, and you, same one's fine. I'm going to want to bring this 75 up. Well, maybe I could use the scouts actually to see what they can see. Answer is not very much. I'm just worried about some Americans poking their head up there. It's quite hard to get a line of sight actually in amongst them. Let's bring you forward a scooch. At least if we're in here somewhere, we'll just maybe turn our gun on that line as well. Good. Let's maybe go for one more live, and I'll probably cut away and come back when something a little bit more exciting is happening. Oh, positive ID over here. Okay, so we've stopped our guys where they are. This is good. Taking casualties. This is not so good. I'm taking lots of casualties actually. Wow, they've broken. Yeah, we're just getting kind of mopped up in that position. That was brutal. Wow, wow, these guys got absolutely mullered. We've just attracted fire from along the line. Oof. You can see it coming in from all the various angles. Okay. I don't like this, feeding them a kind of a unit at a time, which is terrible. I mean, we just got a unit wiped out there. And these guys aren't even joining in the fight. I may have to take more manual use of turn commands. Okay. Right. Hit the done button. And the question is, how much do we risk this recon car? I mean, it is just a recon car, so it's not the end of the world. So I think what I'm going to do, clear your target, and I'm going to try and bring you into the woods a little bit to help engage those Americans there. So in fact, even once you get here, your job is going to be start shooting that bit of dirt. Beautiful. And we do have a Panzer kind of following up the road. And again, help support. Of course, the machine gun has been hit. Okay, that side's not going terribly successfully right now. You should be just about setting up. I'll just get you out as well. Okay. How long left we got in our mortars? A couple minutes? 4 maybe. Yeah, good, good. So, I think this is... So I'm debating whether I want to pull back or just hold the line and hope that my kind of armoured elements come to support is enough. And maybe see if I can wiggle my way through the woods with you as well. Quite a lot of woods here. Alright, we'll see if we can find a path for that. And then, yeah, we'll come back in a moment. Okay, a few more minutes down the line. I've done a better job of establishing local fire superiority in both the extremities of the map, not so much in the centre, where we're kind of in a better position than that initial fumbled approach. I'm definitely going to say that was a waste of a squad there. So on his left hand side, we do have our heavy machine guns getting set up, but I've tweaked the positioning a little bit, so they're still kind of finessing the final place. I have had this infantry gun pop a few rounds off, but he's not doing any active targeting. We're continuing to provide suppressive firepower. I need to stop double clicking the ground from the guys back here, and we've also scooted forward our recon car, who is again providing firepower. In addition, we're going to have mortars following on this area this turn. And all that's given me confidence and comfort. I can start progressing these guys, and these are walking slowly across the ground. On the far side, I mean, we're still taking the occasional casualty, but it's certainly not all one way. And we have both a Panzer IV and we've got a recon vehicle or half-track getting involved. Now, we have also had the first indications of where some of the AT guns are going to be, and we've got this kind of potential spot here. It's worth noting the Americans have been launching the occasional bazooka round at me. They've all fluffed those far, but yeah, they could certainly take out the half-track with a lucky shot or cause some significant damage to that Panzer IV. But let's see where we go. Oh, we've got resolution on this. So it is a 57mm. Okay, so less dangerous than some long ones, but still very capable. I'll have to watch where he... oh, he has popped a shot, actually. Who's that? Looks to be at the Panzer. Intercepted actually. Right, we're going to have to watch that. Right, we'll do this a game of two halves. To start, we're watching this side, and then we'll go back over and cut across. We're just walking our guys in. Perhaps we should run them if we think we've got the superiority to make the crossing. Oh, Got some visible spots of guys running away. Excellent. That's what you like to see. Another team running away. Okay, good. Ah, perfect. Yeah, okay, they seem to be abandoning this position quite heartily. That pleases me. Excellent. Let's go back and see how things were looking on the other side. Another casualty, another MG42. Can't afford to lose those things at the rate I am, especially in the first 15 minutes. It's a long fight. Okay. Hopefully we should see our heavier vehicles getting involved. Oh, that 80 gun makes me pretty nervous. You guys, you have a positive spot. Engage. You are. Yeah, there's a bazooka round out. Thankfully missed. It is a pretty long range. That wasn't as long a range. Ah, look, and they're starting to run from here as well. Excellent. Okay, this will give us an easier time of getting more units up along our own little hedge. And hopefully providing a bit of superiority. Oh, they're all over the shop. Good, 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 good. Perfect. Okay, this is one that's been devastated. Still has the MG42 though. I'm gonna get you to quickly run down there. Question is, do I push my luck with this Panzer IV? I think I will for at least one more moment. Of course I mean one more minute. Now do you have visible targets? You do, so you should just happily engage them. What about yourself? And you've got some visible targets. Excellent. I do want to check down here. I probably want to call off those mortars because they are doing a good job. They'll have some in the air. It'll take us a minute to call off. Actually, they're firing less than a minute left anyway. I'll call the ceasefire. Okay. To be honest, by the time it takes them to clear out everything that's going on, they'll probably expended the payloads anyway. Let's... I was going to say clear tower, but you don't have eyes on it. Who does have eyes of you? Just these guys, and you are not set up yet. In the middle of deploying. Okay. And these guys are coming down off the hill. And maybe we'll keep our kind of aggressive fire team up there, and we'll push out down with this grouping. I will finesse their movements off camera. Good. In which case, I'm just going to get you to keep shooting at this piece of hedge, just in case. We have to be aware, we do know there's some Americans in here. So we'll have to deal with those potentially. We're bringing a unit in here actually. Just getting a bit of inflating fire on them. We'll do that with one of these platoons. Or Zugs, as the Germans call them. This center, yeah. I don't know why we're not spotting anything at all. I mean, I'm presuming there is a bunch of Americans in and around here. I'm okay to take it a little bit slow. Good. Alright, so maybe hang around for one more minute, and then I'll go in and we'll pick up and catch our progress elsewhere. Oh, what are these guys doing? You've run the wrong way. This is going to end badly for them. But it's good, we could do it evening up some of these casualties. Our unit's been pushed off. No casualties though, just too hot for them. Meanwhile, yeah. Seems to be inflicting a reasonable number. Obviously, we've broken the centre here, but there's definitely units further along we'll have to deal with. And we are going to have to watch, obviously, can't really expose our Panzer anymore. But that was okay. Did take another casualty there. feel like we're starting to get the upper hand. The trick is just not to overextend ourselves too much. Just push what we can. We're starting to let in there. Definite threat, we'll have to think how we deal with that. Ideally, would be get some HQ unit with some eyes. Drop some howitzers or some mortars on there. Let's go back and hopefully continue to see Americans abandon their position. Oh, there's one team running for it. Oh, nice. And some more guys running. Perfect. Okay, pretty happy with how this is going. They should give us a good chance to push across this deep forward. The only problem is there's nothing on the immediate side, you know, we'd have to almost make it all the way up to here before we get any kind of cover and concealment. So we might have to actually spend a bit more time just clearing things out from this side of the river. Especially this little section here. But I'm pretty happy we've scared those guys off. And that we're making good progress over there, albeit with a couple of chewed up infantry units. Yeah, that one especially. But no plan is perfect, and we've still got a full company in the middle here we can deal with. Alright, I think we're probably going to call it a day there. I'll probably advance time a little bit. Maybe just if I'm holding where I am and clearing out, we'll come back a little bit later when maybe we're ready to make a crossing or something more substantial has appeared. But as ever, do leave your thoughts, comments, theories down below. I'd always love to hear what other people would do. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Cheerio. Just jumping back on quickly, because as I hit the big red button at the end of that minute, I got a notification about reinforcements. And we have just had another 6 panzers turn up. So much for my we're not getting any reinforcements. And that does make me feel a bit better about the armoured assets we have on map. Also makes me terrified thinking if I've got this much more support, how much more tough is the enemy going to have? But either way, it's a nice reinforcement to have, and we'll have to look to apply those. And I can be a bit more aggressive about applying my current 4 panzers against the entrenched defenders here, because I know I've got reasonable backups should I lose 1 or 2. But there we go. Okay, see you later.